Thank you. My name is Mike Brocchi. I'm here to help you to learn Klingon today. We've heard a lot about it thus far in the conference, but let's get started. So, there we go. Klingon is obviously spelled with a K from the Star Trek universe, but that's not what we're here to talk about. What we're here to talk about today is the CLI for Angular 2. It is a command line interface for building Angular 2 applications, not for Angular 1 applications. So just be wary that if you're trying to use this on an Angular 1 application, it will not work. It is not supported. But we are looking forward to Angular 2, and this will help you to drive that forward. Maybe. So I was curious a while ago, I put a poll up on Twitter about what were some of the barriers of entry to be able to create an Angular 2 application or get you started in terms of creating Angular 2 applications. Angular 1, it was very easy. You had your ES5, you just threw your Angular reference in the browser and you were good to go. Now with the suggestion of using type build process, and a lot of other things to get sped up. So the things I thought that most people were bothered with was setting up your environment, the lack of the documentation out there, whether or not it's too complicated, and just people that just weren't interested. Can't do much if you're not interested in Angular. The CLI won't help you with Ember or React. So what we can help with, or hopefully help you out with, is setting up your environment and some of the complications. Also back to the lack of documentation, that's been addressed of recent. This is from back in March. So a lot of the documentation, and credit to that team for getting the documentation up to speed. So the idea of the CLI is to take an application and from an idea. You start with an idea of something you want to build or something your company wants you to build. And then to be able to take that, maybe, yes, and build that application. Build, and not just building, but also testing and running through your unit tests and your integration tests, everything from your local environment. As well as rolling out to a production environment, deploying the application that you've built. So it's not just on your machine, it's not just on your fellow developer's machine, but it's also out there on the cloud for other people to run in a production environment. And then support it after the fact to iterate and build on top of your application once it's deployed into a production, to be able to go back and reiterate, add new features, fix bugs, what your users want out of your application. So the main piece is to get started fast. No barrier to entry. Run a command or two and get started fast. First step, you need to install it. Pull it down one command, install it globally so that you can run it wherever you need. It's not necessarily associated to a specific directory. Install it globally so that you have it available. The next step, ng-new. You start up a new project. I want to create a project, and whatever your project name is. In my case, very dynamic project name. Next up, set up your build process. You either use gulp or grunt or anything else. And for me, it's a lot like banging your head against the wall, setting up your build process. What's out there? What do you need to do to set that up? But what if I were to tell you that you didn't have to? You didn't have to be able to not have to worry about configuring any of these particular build tools to get your environment set up and running. You're just ready to go right off the bat. That would be awesome, which is a gift that we will, there we go. That would be awesome, so that you didn't have to set up any of those environments. I'm gonna move over here, put this down. So with the CLI, what can you do? You can run builds. You can take your application that's been created for you once you've added code and build it, compile it, get everything into the appropriate directory for you. Test it. Run your unit tests. You're already set up. Don't have to worry about setting up Karma to be able to configure that. What directory are my files in? Where are the tests that I need to run? Where is all that stuff? It's already configured for you out of the box. End-to-end testing. Pain in the neck in terms of from my perspective, to be able to run end-to-end tests. I've never written end-to-end tests because I've never took the time to figure out how to do that. This comes to you out of the box. Serving. You're writing your application, and as you're writing your application, you want to be able to see it run. You serve up your application, you can see it run in the browser with live reload. Deployments, talked about going to production. Out of the box, you can support deploying to GitHub Pages as well as to Firebase. It'll be extensible so that we can add on to that later on. And I feel like a used car salesman up here trying to tell you what it can do. But there's still more. It's not just being able to set up your environment. So what else can it do? You can generate components. Don't have to worry about the file structure that's already there. It'll generate your TypeScript file for your component, your spec file, your markup file, your CSS file, all that for you to be able to just scale that up in one command. Directives, same thing. Whatever you want to call it, specify directives. Pipes, services, routes, Routes are a little bit more interesting, but we handle that as well. And also classes, just a simple class of a model that you want to create within your application. So you start with the idea of an application. And as you have that application, you're going to add different things to it. You're going to add a component, a service, pipe, or directive, or multiple of any of those. And then also you're going to add routes to your application. And the way that I think about a route is almost like a mini application, because it encapsulates all the features that are inside of that particular route to be able to mimic some sort of functionality within that given route within your application. So I think of it as a little application inside of my big application. And then those routes and those little applications have their own functionality within it, whether or not it's a component or service directive. So you take your route, and then you add more routes. And the CLI is going to handle that for you, adding multiple routes. Child routes, handle that, be able to grow with you. And then as your application grows, from time to time, you're going to keep on adding more of these things, and the CLI will grow with it to be able to support you as you are building your application, that the CLI will still be able to generate more routes, more pieces, and be able to serve that up real time, as well as deploy it and build it with you as you grow. So supporting you from that idea of when you start with an idea, you build it, and then you go to production. It keeps supporting you as you are building your application. It is not just for scaling up little demos or anything else. Not that it won't do that, but it will support large applications as well. So, we want to be able to see this thing run, right? All right, good. So bear with me because I'm not great at coding here, but we will run through this. I already ran through the ng-new because nobody wants to sit here and watch npm install and me tell jokes. So I already ng-newed. I'll show that command right here. And I have this prefix specified here at the end. All of the components are generated with a prefix because it needs a dash in the name. It's configurable. You can set it here on new time. You can also set it as a environment variable or configurable value within your application after generation. I did that for convenience. I'm just going to change into the directory. I'm running a local version. I found a bug last night that I needed to fix that hasn't been published out to npm yet. And then I just opened the editor. So what do we have? We have a directory structure. We have some configuration files. I've already built this application. You have a dist directory, an end test, your node modules, public for any assets that you want to create, or global CSS files that will just get copied over to your dist directory, as well as your source directory, which is where all of your application lives, and an app directory where the app component lives. Just your typings and a few other configuration files, and that just be able to specify your environment. So we'll start with first thing, let's run ng test. We don't want to sit here and watch it keep running, so we're just going to run it with a flag of no watch. We'll see our browser pop up. It's starting Chrome, executes our test, and we already have tests running out of the box. We give you a few boilerplate ones to give you some examples of what's already there. You could also serve up the application. Switch over to the browser. It's run on port 4200 locally, and we have a running application with no code, nothing done so far, just ng-new, ng-serve, and you're done. Thank you. So, obviously we're going to build an application, so let's build something that everybody here is familiar with. Everybody familiar with the Tour of Heroes application? All right, 2 people, good, so you'll understand what's going on. All right, so what we're going to do first is we need to generate a model. I'm going to generate that first, so we're just going to say ng-generate, and we're going to generate, and we're going to generate a class, which is just going to be our model of what we want to create. And the name of that is going to be hero, except for I want to put it under the shared directory, just because underneath our application we have our root component and a shared directory. So we're going to put that right in there, and we want to call that hero. And we want it to also be suffixed with a model, because to be a little bit more descriptive, rather than a file name of just hero, we want to decorate that with the word model so that we know that it's a hero model. We spin that up, and we can come over and look in our editor and see, hey, we just get a class. Nothing too complicated there, but we have a class. And I'm just going to throw some properties on there. I'm going to use snippets a lot because nobody wants to watch me type, and it's not really about me building the Angular application, it's about the CLI. So, next step. Need to be able to provide a way of being able to get access to that model and get that data. So I'm going to generate a service. And I'm also going to call it the same thing. But it'll be suffixed with the .service. Again, just like the other one that had .model, this will have .service, so no name collisions there with the particular files. You also notice that we're also getting a spec file and unit tests. So we have that service here. In order to do that, we want to import in our hero object, and we'll put that here from hero.model, and then VS Code will give us some nice IntelliSense here to pull in hero. Yay! And then we just need to provide some methods here. And we are going to put that in here. This is something I don't really care for right now in terms of VS Code, in that it is not picking these up, so I'm just going to reload the window. Perfect. Haha. It is not like that. Haha, we will put this outside of you. Yay! And we'll get rid of this one. You notice here this long list of names. My concept of a hero isn't really the same as the superheroes that we have there. What you'll see here is the list of the contributors who have contributed to the Angular CLI. So thank you to them, please. So they're the ones who are making this a reality, including me. So we now have a service and we have a model of what we need to generate. So we need a way of being able to display this data. And I have forgotten, I want to go back through. I have a few things in here to be able to get some CSS so it doesn't look ugly, or not as ugly. I am not a designer. And this is my app. So we got some CSS in there and some code. And this is the TOH app markup. So what we've done is created a reference here to a route. So we need to go ahead and generate a route. In order to do that, the generation of a route does more than just spit out some files. It actually modifies some other pieces of your application to make the routes work. And we want our routes to work. So I'm just going to quickly just stash my current changes in Git, because, oh, that's the other thing. When you ng new, by default, you get a Git repo. And we just watched a wonderful talk about animations. We have ASCII art. Not quite the same as animations, but something in there in your Git log that it creates initial commit with ASCII art. So we're going to come in, we're going to generate a route, and we're going to call this dashboard. Whoa, I have no rage. I have no rage. All right, so we're going to generate a route, thank you. And we're going to call that dashboard. And I think that's all we need. Yes. So let's go take a look and see exactly what we're creating. You can see it's scaffolded up those files as well as a barrel, which is a concept that will be, you can read about in the style guide. I don't know if it's currently there, John? A barrel's currently in the style guide? Yes. Yes. So you can read about barrels in the style guide right now. So we can look at the diffs. We'll be able to inject into system.js, which is what it's using under the hood, to be able to build that in order to find the index.js when it references dashboard, to be able to put that there, your HTML, your TypeScript, CSS, HTML, as well as going into, in here, it is injecting in the router outlet, so it knows that it needs to have a place in your app to be able to display that route. It's also adding some imports into your application. It is going to bring in the dashboard component to create a reference for that. You need to have your routes so that they can be defined. That's already added for you. You don't have to worry too much about that syntax. It's already there. And then as well as your providers. You need to tell the injector that I'm using routing now in the application. That got added for you. As well as the router directives internally within your application. And another piece is that we also need to pull in the hero service to tell Angular that we need to inject that into our routes. So I'm going to import that from the shared piece here, and we're going to pull in the hero service. And that's a nice thing about the barrels, is that you don't have multiple imports. You can have a barrel to be able to have all of those references in a single import to consolidate all of those for you, to keep your code more concise. So we've got our markup. Oh, we're going into the dashboard now. So we can add our code here to the dashboard. CSS, again, nobody wants to watch me type that out, as well as the code here. So we're going to do the dashboard markup. And all we're going to have here is just a list of the heroes, as well as a click event. We'll talk about go to detail next. We're just going to show the name and their commits and show this running in the browser. Actually, no, we need to actually add some code to actually make that happen. So we need to do the dashboard imports. We need to specify a property that's going to hold our data. Property. So we'll put that in here. We need to inject in a few things here. So we're going to do the dashboard import, or excuse me, the constructor imports. So all we're doing here is we're injecting in the hero service as well as the router. On initialization, init, we are just going to go out to the hero service and we're going to get the heroes and to be able to display those in our application. So we've been focusing on writing some code. Let's go through and we can still go through and build our application. Assuming I didn't break anything. Yay! Still executing tests. And you'll notice there's be more tests here running rather than just the two that were initially there. Whoa, we have broken tests. What? There's no provider for the hero service? I'm not injecting it in there. Okay. It should be there. So we don't need tests. All right. So let's see if we are running. So ignore that. And we'll reload our application, and we have a dashboard. Navigate to that, and we have data now routing to that dashboard. Excellent. So now that we have that one route, obviously I mentioned that we have the idea of navigating from the dashboard to something else on the go to click, which we haven't added yet. So we're going to add the code here, which is a go to detail method. So obviously from there, you want to be able to see more about the particular person or committer within our application. So we're going to generate another route. So we come back and we're going to do generate, ng-generate route, and this is going to be the hero detail. And I think it's a smaller thing, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to use -- inline template and -- inline style. Sort of a fan of this, but what it really allows me to do is have one snippet to be able to replace the entire route for you. So you'll notice here I am only creating 2 files now under there that you really care about. I'm creating the component, which will have the inline styles, and we'll go look at that, as well as the spec file. So we can come in, look at the hero detail, and in here you'll notice that because I've used those particular flags, that we have the template inline. So if you have a very small template, if that's the way you want to generate your particular route, then you can just use that option to be able to consolidate everything into a single file rather than in a separate markup file. So we're going to put that in here. We're going to add the detail. And all I'm doing here is putting in the markup for that, as well as some style and some navigation. So when the route is activated, we're going to go and get that particular hero and set that. So come back, and I'm going to actually ng-serve that back up. Start up our web server. Come back in, refresh the dashboard, and click on one and be able to see people who are the particular committer. Again, please don't knock my CSS. So in here we have the committers, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to bump mine up because I need to get above Hans. He does the commit, so he gets or the releases, so he gets a few extra commits in there. The last particular piece is you want to be able to see a list of all the committers, so we can give them another round of applause after I get that in there. So I'm going to go even shorter with the syntax here. So we're going to use some shorthand. We're going to do an ng-generate, and I'm just using G, and I want to generate a route. So instead of typing generate all the time or typing route all the time, we'll give you some shorthand to be able to quicken that up. So we're just going to do ng-gr, which is generate a route, and the route that we're going to generate is the hero list. And we're going to use some other shortcuts, inline template and inline style, again, just for the brevity of being able to replace that quickly for you. So we're going to spit out the hero list. Come in, take a look at that. And again, you've got your inline template and your inline styles. I'm going to blow that away and give you the list here. And just filling in the template and a little bit of code within here. Again, it's not really about writing the application. It's about showing the CLI to be able to generate that. So we come back in, serve that up. And actually, before we do, I'm going to come back in here because it's bothering me. I'm going to go in and On the dashboard? Actually, no, it was on the application. I'm not sure why our styles are messed up. This is supposed to be blue. I know a little bit about design, not a whole lot. So, come back in, we'll refresh, but we didn't add the markup to our root, so we need to add that into our HTML. We're just going to create a route underneath, and this one is actually going to go to our hero list. And we're going to call that heroes. And just because of this, we're going to go back and change our title. So yes, it does work, and that's super. We don't really want to see that. We want to say thank you to CLI contribs. Come back in, and now we have our other route added, as well as being able to see everybody within there, the navigation, to be able to view the details, and go back and view the application. So that's what we have from the demo. Heading back to slides. Now that, thank you. So what we have here is now that we've given you the tools to be able to create your own applications, please go out and use it yourself now that you have those tools in your hands. So I think we've covered the idea of you setting up your environment to get your environment set up quickly. I think that solves that for you. The idea of the complication of what are these annotations, what are these decorators, how do I spin them up, what properties are there, I think those are all there for you. Documentation's cleaned up, and the people who don't want to use Angular 2, don't use Angular 2. You're not here, are you? Okay. So the current status of the application. As of yesterday, I'd like to announce that we are at a beta stage. Thank you. Roadmap, we're not done yet. Obviously, we're not even released, but we have other things planned in the future. Offline template compilation, we heard about that. We're going to throw that into the pipeline as well through your build process to compile your templates offline for you. Lazy loading. As of right now, the routes are generated by default as lazy. Once that's more ironed out in the router, I'm not sure the current status, but we will implement that to be able to lazy load your routes for you from the code generation perspective as well as the build tooling. Third-party add-ons, if you want to have your own build process that you want to add on, or other deployments, either the community could do that, or maybe we decide to add something else as well, yet to be determined. Angular upgrades, that was talked about yesterday. That Alex talked about the idea of Angular upgrades. When you are going, Angular 2.0 is not going to be a final. It's going to change over time. We're going to support that to be able to run an upgrade process, analyze your code, determine what changes or breaking changes are there, and suggest updates of what you can do to upgrade your application with each release of the Angular framework. Continuous integration, the idea of not only just scaling up your application, but also providing continuous integration environment to be able to configure that so you can, when you check into GitHub or wherever you are checking into, to put hook into Travis or something like that for your continuous integration of your projects. And also the idea of producing Angular packages, not just applications, but something like Angular Material would use something like this to be able to create a library, maybe a toolset or some controls that you want to publish. And more customizations. We're still rather early on in the life cycle of the CLI, and there's a lot of things that we can add, and we've already looked into those. So find out about it out on the cli.angular.io. Take a look at that website. There's some documentation there. We will be adding to that as the as it matures. So thank you.